Good evening. Today is Monday, April 7th, 2025. I call to order a meeting of the Brockton Finance Committee. Will everyone please rise and join me in honoring our country by saluting our flag?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Clerk, agenda item number 1, please.
We have the acceptance of the minutes of the March 17th, 2025 Finance Committee meeting.
Accepted and placed on file.
Ordered in accordance with Mass General Laws, Chapter 30B, 16A, that the City Council hereby declare as surplus the city-owned parcel of land, Assessors Map Parcel ID 110-076, Route 76, Plot 372-1, land that was formerly part of the Brockton Area Transportation Bus Terminal as surplus property. This order further authorizes the mayor to execute all documents necessary to facilitate the transfer of land. The authority granted to the mayor herein includes the authority to transfer the land declared in surplus in whole or in part.
Councilors, in a second, I'm going to seek a motion to table this surplus order. My intent with this order was to authorize the mayor to enter into an agreement with the Main Street property owners along the proposed Sycamore Grove property to purchase or lease land near their establishment for outdoor dining. The current language and the current procedure to make this happen, I found, was to be improper. So back to the drawing board, but Councilor Lally.
Motion to table.
Second.
We have a motion to table that's been properly seconded.
Roll call. No, don't have.
All in favor? Anyone opposed? The matter is tabled.
Item 3, ordered that the City Council reauthorize the War Memorial Revolving Fund for the purpose of funding custodial fees. The revolving fund shall receive payments for the rental of the auditorium. Expenditures from the War Memorial Revolving Fund shall be made on the authority and direction of the building superintendent, provided that no more than $25,000 may be so expended without further appropriation from the War Memorial Revolving Fund during fiscal year 26. The building superintendent shall comply with the reporting requirements of Mass General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53E and a half. Invited Commissioner of Buildings James Plouffe, CFO Dr. Troy Clarkson, Mayor Robert Sullivan.
Good evening, Commissioner Plouffe and CFO Clarkson. Welcome.
Good evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Please, if you have anything to say, please do so.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, if I might, let me give you an overview of this item and several of the ones that follow, and then Commissioner Plouffe can certainly answer any specific questions you have on this. But there are 4 revolving funds on your agenda for renewal tonight. As you know, this is a request that's made of you each year to renew these revolving funds on an annual basis. Earlier today, I sent you what's a pretty detailed spreadsheet that lists all of the revolving funds. Then I did provide for you a hard copy of the ones that are on your agenda for tonight, just so you had some background information on what the balance is in those funds, what the amount of revenues for the last couple of years, and what the expenditures have been thus far this year. You'll notice that the Senior Center Transportation Fund is not listed because there has been no activity. You recently created that fund in anticipation of the move back to the Senior Center. So it is requested that you renew the fund, although there has been no activity since it was created and there's no balance in it. For the War Memorial, you see it's got a small balance of just less than $600 and no activity for the last couple of years. Jim can answer any specific questions on the operation of the fund, and I'm happy to answer any questions either broadly on the revolving funds in general or this one specifically.
Councilors, this is on the War Memorial Revolving Fund. We'll take each one as they come before us. So on the War Memorial, Councilor Rodriguez.
Well, I was just wondering if the commissioner actually has a statement that he wants to make before I ask my questions, if I could.
Mr. Commissioner, do you have anything to add?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, councilors. Recently, the mayor and myself met with the Board of Trustees for the War Memorial, and they have indicated the interest to start renting the facilities out again now that it's been refurbished. So as part of that, and the discussions about custodial services for anything we rented out, we came up with the idea that, well, we went back to the same idea that we had years ago where the building department made the reservations, anyone that wanted to come in and use the facilities through board approval. So the War Memorial Board will still have approval over who goes and rents the facilities, but we would handle all the paperwork and logistics in our office. So this revolving account would be reactivated after a few years to be able to handle the intake of fees, which we're working with the board and the law office on, and then also paying out the custodial fees through overtime. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Mr. Commissioner. Councilors, I'd also like to recognize Matt Stanton, the Chair of the War Memorial Board, with us. Oh, you're not a trustee? Oh. Well, still welcome, Matt. Good to see you. Councilor Rodriguez, the floor is still yours.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, I'm glad you answered that initial question that I had as far as the plans and procedures of renting the place, because, as you know, we spent $1 gazillion to get that facility back online. It would be a shame that only a small group in the city gets to use that facility and not the community itself that actually paid for the repairs of the War Memorial. And that being said, do you know if they have developed any sort of criteria for renting the facilities yet in terms of who gets it, what kinds of activities they're going to be allowing in there, for what purpose?
The board was indicated during the meeting that they want to do it on a case-by-case basis to make sure that it's an organization that is worthy of that building. We want to make sure that it fits what that facility is for.
When you say an organization that fits what that organization is for, what are you saying, that it has to be a veterans group?
Well, we don't want to have hate groups of the sort.
Or what about community-based organizations that do a variety of good things in this community?
Absolutely. They would go to the board, Councilor, and most likely get approved to be used in it.
Have you guys figured out a pricing for the rental of the facilities yet?
There is a tentative schedule, but it's not finalized.
And will you come back and at least email some of us and just kind of let us know what that
Absolutely.
Price point is, so we can start, communicating with the folks in this community? Because I travel all over the state and I see facilities like that being used for a variety of things, police graduations, community organizations graduating their classes and doing a bunch of other things to bring people in and support the community in the sense. And I think it would be a shame for that building just to be mothballed like it had been in the past, and only family and friends get to use it. And if you don't have any family and friends in certain places, you don't have a chance to use it. So I hope that that's not going to be the case going forward.
I can assure you that we'll make every effort to make everybody equal use of that building. However, it is up to the Board of Trustees to make the determinations.
Right, but they also need to know that when the place needed repairing, the trustees didn't pay for the repairs, the taxpayers did. So we need to kind of keep that in mind, that it's not up to whatever they decide to do. They got to do it in concert with the city itself, so that they're not just saying, well, it's just going to be Group A and not Group B, Group C, not Group D, because that's the problem that some of us will have when it's some groups are being singled out not to use the facilities, and others will have like basically a blank card to use it whenever they feel like it. And that's the issue that we had in the past, that I hope we don't go back that way again. That if it's going to be made available, there's a criteria in place, you're a nonprofit, you're in good standings with the community or whatever, and you've got a good reputation in the community, here's an application, fill it out, go to the board, make your case in front of them in the sense, but at least that would be what makes or break it, versus just to say we're not going to rent it to this group or other groups.
Certainly. And the mayor has indicated that that's how he would like to have it done. I'm sure the next mayor that comes in will also be that way.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Farwell.
Mr. Plouffe and Mr. Clarkson, I think it is worthy of renting out the facility, but I would ask that you carefully get together with the law department, have a rental agreement. If you're going to allow groups that want a one-day liquor license. That could open up the city to some liability if someone gets hurt. The other thing is parking is at a premium in that area. I don't know what the capacity of the auditorium is. You may know that. But renting out that facility, I kind of consider that building very different than most buildings because it's in honor of veterans. So if you've made a decision, you're going to rent it, that's fine, but let's put some safeguards in place. That would be my only comments.
Absolutely, Councilor, and that's something that we talked about in depth about liquor licenses and liability. There'll be waivers for people who want to rent the facility. Definitely, those are considerations that we are already thinking about. Thank you.
Because I'm not so sure that an organization from outside the city, if it's available for rental, you may very well have to allow them to use it if they meet all criteria. And again, I just want to make sure that particular building receives the reverence that I think it deserves. And I'll just leave it at that.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Nicastro.
Thank you, gentlemen. Good evening. Can you roughly tell me how much money was spent in ARPA funds to make improvements to the War Memorial Building?
I can certainly get you an exact amount, but I believe it was in the neighborhood of $4 to $5 million.
That's what I thought, too. And give us an idea of what improvements were made with those federal funds.
Most of the improvements, because of the nature of the ARPA funds, were to restore or actually, in some cases, install fresh air and HVAC, heating, ventilation, and air conditioning throughout the building. Then there was ancillary work related to that because of the things that had to be disturbed. So there was some improvements, lighting, ceiling tiles throughout the building, but mainly it focused on the fresh air.
Well, the building looks great. I was there on Friday for the firefighters ceremony.
Thank you.
And the $25,000 seed money that's going into the revolving fund, this fund is to collect fees and to be used to pay for custodians?
Yes, and yes to the second part of the question. First part, there is no seed money. This, no, we are not requesting to add any money to this account. This will be created to be able to take in fees that we charge for the rental and then pay for services out of that fund. So we're not going to seed the account with money.
This is for custodian services or other services too?
Custodial services.
Okay, can we buy some new chairs?
I can check on it depends on the language from the city council when the fund was created. I don't have that, but we can certainly check on that, and I'll let you know. And so, just to clarify something that the commissioner just said, the fund is already created. We're asking you to renew it. There's a balance of, as you see on the spreadsheet I provided you, $578 in the fund right now.
Right, thank you. Commissioner Plouffe is aware, I attended the firefighters' graduation ceremony last Friday, and I sat behind a few rows of firefighters in their dress uniforms, which by the end of the ceremony was covered in a distinct fuzz of maroon because the chairs were shedding so badly. And I've been there many times. I've never seen that happen with those chairs. In addition, some of the chairs were quite soiled. And so I don't know how that happened, but I think we need new chairs. And to have done all of this work and to be readying ourselves to rent the place out to the public and others, I think we need some new chairs. And I was asked to emphasize this by Representatives Bridget Plouffe and Rita Mendez, because they were sitting with me, and they were sitting on the edge of their seats so that chairs wouldn't share their fuzz with them. And I guess I narrowly missed it. But in any event, I would like to put that idea publicly in your ears. We need some new chairs there. To have done all of this work and make that beautiful building look so good and not replace the chairs would be really a shame. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. I'll follow up.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Tavares.
Good evening, you
Good evening.
all. Yeah, basically, war memories on my ward, as you know, and I'm totally agree with my colleagues, Winter and Moses as well. Definitely, I like to see access for everybody, all Brockton, all the taxpayer. That mean, like, I like to see, like, on website, like, the requirement, the policy, procedures in place, easy access for anyone does apply. Because, like, the more rent we have, meaning, like, the more tax money is gonna come into the city. And it's just gonna be, like, easy, like, for example, if you search your A or B want to rent, they knows they can look online, see the requirement, they knows the person they're going through it, and kind of literally do the mediation, set up and get the contract, and with the safety, of course, in place. And I think it will be great. We need to kind of do much better in the city, try to let the taxpayer get access to the, to this property in the city, and to work together in collaboration, more friendship, easy access, and I think will be great. That's all I have to say for tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. There's nothing further. I'd entertain a motion.
Motion to recommend favorable.
Second.
Motion is made and properly seconded to recommend this matter favorably. All in favor? Anyone opposed? The order is recommended favorable.
Item 4, ordered that the City Council reauthorize the vacant and abandoned buildings revolving fund for the purpose of maintaining the abandoned building registry, as well as the closing, boarding up, and care of vacant and abandoned buildings. The vacant and abandoned building revolving fund shall receive the receipt of payments of fines and fees for the registration of vacant and abandoned buildings. Expenditures from the vacant and abandoned buildings revolving fund shall be made on the authority and direction of the building superintendent, provided that no more than $250,000 may be so expended without further appropriation from the vacant and abandoned building revolving fund during FY26. The building superintendent shall comply with the reporting requirements of Mass General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53E and a half. Invited Commissioner of Buildings James Plouffe, CFO Dr. Troy Clarkson, Mayor Robert Sullivan.
Gentlemen, again, good evening. The floor is yours.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, I'll defer to the building superintendent for any specific questions you have, just to give you an overview that exists on the spreadsheet we provided you. The fund has $1,041,000 in it as it stands. In FY24, the revenues were $229,000. Expenditures were about $156,000. So far this year, revenues are just shy of $80,000, and expenses are $99,000.
Councilors, Councilor Castro.
Thank you, and good evening again, gentlemen. $1 million is an awful lot of money to have in this account. Is there any way to reduce that amount? Because it doesn't seem like you're going to be using $1 million. Or I guess I should turn it around. Commissioner Plouffe, do you see a need for that much money in this revolving account?
On a daily basis, or yearly basis, we probably, on the average, would not use even close to $250,000.
Right.
However, last year, or 2 years ago, we took down 7 or 8 buildings. It exceeded the $250,000 mark. So having the extra amount of money in there, in that account, to come to council and get authorization to use more in, was very helpful. If we didn't have that money in that account, we wouldn't have been able to do what we did. So being able to have it sit there and maybe not $1 million, but definitely $500,000 to $750,000 would be appropriate for us to have to take down any large buildings. These days, construction costs and demolition costs, especially with hazardous materials such as asbestos and lead, raise the cost of demolition and removal tremendously. And especially in this day and time, the past few weeks, we're seeing a huge increase in construction costs. So I would say that the having a larger amount in there isn't a negative, but I wouldn't be opposed if there was a cap that the council wanted to put on and then send it back to the general fund would be appropriate.
Well, that's what I'm wondering, because even in that year, was it last year or the year before, when you had to come back for more funds,
Yes.
how much did you spend in total?
I'm looking at my memory, and I'm thinking it's somewhere in the neighborhood of $500,000 or $600,000.
Right. Okay, I could see reducing the amount that you're holding in this, but I suppose we take that up at another time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Texiera.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioner Pluff,
Yes.
do we have an idea how many abandoned buildings that we have in the city?
Right now, the number we have is just over 120. We're looking right now, we're working with the mayor's office and HR, Human Resources, to acquire a part-time vacant abandoned inspector, hopefully starting within the next week or two, to be able to, 19 hours a week, not a lot, but enough to drive around the city and try to find out where the rest of them are. Because we believe there are more, and right now we're so overwhelmed with all the other duties in the office that the vacant abandoned search has been kind of put down a little bit in priorities because of code enforcement and other issues. So with this part-time person, we're going to be able to get a true and accurate count. What I have done in the past year or two is had one of my building inspectors drive by each one of the buildings on our registry and determine whether or not they were vacant. And we were able to take a large number of them off that we're having problems with. So right now it's just over 120, 130, somewhere in there. But I believe we're going to find there's a lot more in the building, in the city than that.
So we do charge $1,500, is it $1,500 a yearly for abandoned building? Plus,
So the vacant property, it's a gradation scale. It starts at $150 the first year, $300 for the second year of vacancy, $500 for the third, $1,000 for the fourth, and then fifth and subsequent years, it's $1,500. So it makes it unsavourable, it makes it you don't want to have a vacant building for that long because it gets really expensive.
and plus still you have to pay the tax on top.
Yes, this is separate and apart from taxes.
And do we know how many buildings that the city owns that's abandoned?
Well, I'd say none of this, I'm not trying to pass words, but none of our buildings are abandoned. We have some vacant buildings, probably in the neighborhood of 6 to 8.
6 to 8.
Yeah. And that's not including any of the properties that the tax collector might take for that, for taxes.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Councilors, anyone else? Councilor Tavares.
Yes, good evening again. Yes, actually, I just have one question, I know, just a clarification a little bit. Who does pay the tax for those abandoned buildings?
The responsible party for taxes for any privately owned property is the property owner. So if they don't pay the taxes, the city may take that through the treasurer's office. But the person that owns the property on title is responsible for their taxes.
Do you guys ever approach it to those, like, abandoned property building or owner, like, to find out, like, exactly what's going on? Like, why it's been abandoned for so long, or?
Well, some of them are truly abandoned. There's a few of those that are truly abandoned. Some are just vacant. Say a bank has taken a foreclosure on a property and removed the residents. They leave the properties vacant. We've never contacted the bank to ask them why they've left them vacant for so long. And some of these other properties where the owner is not to be found, we haven't been able to reach those people to ask them that question.
Yes, the reason I mentioned that, because I remember when there was code enforcement, I was working with Robin Jackson. Actually, we always target those abandoned buildings. We send all those records to him. I believe he always take the court or the bank, whatever it is. They always kind of win the case situation and give people opportunity to invest in that situation. Because we do have a large number vacant building. And Brockton look horrible, let me tell you the truth. Because those vacant and abandoned buildings, of course, they're not taking care about the properties. Look awful. I saw that, many of it. I've been there because I was code enforcement. Like I said, I target many of it. But we literally need to work together and kind of find solution, and literally to kind of give another people opportunity who has money to invest and to be easy access to them, just to kind of, help it better. Then we kind of get a little more money and be out of that or kind of figure it out something else. I think we need to kind of literally work hard and figure it out, things better. All right, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Rodriguez.
No, I just want to follow up with what Councilor Tavares just brought up. You said there's about 100-plus vacant property, or vacant or abandoned properties in the city that you know of, right?
Yes.
Has anybody checked to see if their taxes are all up to date? I mean, they're actually paying taxes on these properties, that they're just not sitting there vacant.
Some of them are. We haven't checked them all, and we haven't checked them recently. But when I was looking at the files, whenever a bank owns a property, they keep up on the taxes. So even though the building's vacant, they pay their taxes on a regular schedule. The ones that are abandoned, we can't find the owners. A lot of those cases are tax delinquent.
But why are we not doing something in terms of taking those properties away? Or I mean, we know that our coffers are not doing very well in terms of finances. And if there's an opportunity to turn those vacant properties into livable properties by putting them out there, why aren't we going full throttle after some of these properties to make sure that their taxes are up to date? I can understand if you're choosing not to live in your property, but at least you're going to pay taxes.
Yes.
But why are we not staying on top of that to make sure that those taxes are up to date? So, I mean, honestly, if I had anything to do with that, the first day you miss your taxes, you'd be in trouble.
I can answer that, Council. There is no provision or policy in the city that differentiates the vacant and abandoned buildings from any other property. So if those properties are delinquent in their taxes, they go into tax title, and we initiate the proceedings to take the property. I can give you a list of properties that are currently in tax title, and as you know, we actually had an auction a couple of weeks ago and sold properties that we had taken and then created revenue for the city by selling those properties.
But Dr. Clarkson, I personally would feel better knowing that the city is taking over a piece of property that is vacant or abandoned versus a property that a family is having a tough time making ends meet and paying their taxes. So if we have a handful of those who are abandoned, no one living in them, and in some cases in disrepair, why are we not being a little more forceful going after those properties versus saying, well, we're going to throw it all in this one big basket, and we're going to look at them no matter how it is the same way? Because I personally would feel better knowing that the city is going after properties that are vacant or abandoned versus those that were kicking families out of them.
I understood completely what you're saying. I don't think the law treats them differently, but what I can do, we'll cross-reference the properties on Jim's vacant and abandoned list with what's in tax title, and I'll just take a look at those.
No, please.
And do an analysis for you.
That would actually make a world of a difference. I mean, because it serves twofolds in the sense, you're fixing the place up and you're also bringing some revenue into the community.
Absolutely.
Into the city. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Farwell.
I should know the answer to this question, but does vacant and abandoned buildings also cover private dwellings?
Yes.
Okay. 105 Rockland Street, tree went through the middle of the house. It's been there for a couple of years. It went to, I think, land court. The person was ordered to demolish the house, and we're sitting back waiting for them to sell another piece of property before they have enough funds to take the building down, and I get constant complaints from the neighborhood. If anyone drove by there, you'd be horrified to see the fence around it. There are probably animals living in it. And I hope that that property is subject to the requirements under the vacant and abandoned building list. It's really inexcusable what's going on, and it wouldn't happen in any other city. And we're just as good as Salem and Quincy and Westfield and any other community. Newton, you would not find that building sitting there for a couple of years in that condition in another city. And I feel badly for the residents, so I'm just passing on to you. Let's make sure that that owner is aware of the fees that have to be paid for being vacant and abandoned, and maybe that will spur them into doing what the judge ordered them to do, which was demolish the property.
Yes.
I know you're familiar with it. So.
Yeah, I'm very familiar, Councilor. It's, and the law office has been working fervently on that case.
Yes. That house may outlive me. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Counselor. No one else, I'd entertain a motion.
Motion to recommend favorably.
Second.
Motion is made and properly seconded. All in favor? Anyone opposed? The order is recommended favorably.
Number 5, ordered that the City Council, reauthorize the demolition revolving fund for the purpose of helping to fund costs in connection with the demolition of buildings in the City of Brockton. The fund shall receive the receipts of payments of all demolition charges of the City of Brockton. Expenditures from the demolition revolving fund shall be made on the authority and direction of the building superintendent with the written approval of the mayor, provided that no more than $110,000 may be so expended without further appropriation from the demolition revolving fund during FY26. The building superintendent shall comply with the reporting requirements of Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53E and 1/2. Invited Commissioner of Buildings James Plouffe, CFO Dr. Troy Clarkson, Mayor Robert Sullivan.
Again, good evening, gentlemen, and again, the floor is yours.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And once again, I'll be glad to defer to Mr. Plouffe for any detailed questions you have. Excuse me. The current balance in the demolition revolving fund is $16,848, and we're not showing any activity in either FY24 or 25. But I do remember prior to that, there was a few years ago when it was very active, and that fund was used to demolish several buildings. With that, I'm happy to defer to my colleague.
Thank you, Dr. Clarkson and councilors. This fund, we've had some questions before about our general budget, this account, and the vacant abandoned account. We have a general line item in our regular budget for demolition, and we also have this one, which is a revolving account for demolition, and then we have the vacant abandoned fund. And we can use all three of them for demolitions in certain aspects. But this particular fund is meant to just revolve, keep a line item that will allow us to help supplement any demolition that we come across. Ideally, this would be a large fund, a larger fund, and I wouldn't have to have it in our regular budget. And ideally, it would be paid out of the receipts from any demolition and liens that we put onto the properties. Currently, we only have $16,000. It's not going to take a half a house with $16,000, but it's a fund that I believe is vitally important for supplemental demolition when my regular budget can't handle it. Thank you.
Motion to recommend favorably.
Second.
Motion, Councilor Castro.
Thank you. On the motion, gentlemen, good evening. So, according to this printout we received from Mr. Clarkson, there were no expenditures from your demo revolving fund in '24 and $7,600 in '25. And you've got a balance of $16,800. What did you spend that $7,600 on? Give me a sense.
Yes, and I just want to say that we missed out in our original presentation here. $7,600 was used for the demolition and leaving in the hole, unfortunately, of 880 Main Street on the corner of East Nilsson and Main. It was that large fire that we had, yes. So that's what that was meant for, and I'm going to be working with the CFO Clarkson's office to do a journal entry change because the payment was made but went into the wrong account. So we'll have that, see if we can have that just changed over, and that'll wipe out that negative.
Okay. And I know we already finished this one, but what did you spend the $99,000 on for the vacant and abandoned? Can you give me an idea of that in FY25?
From memory, because I don't have that broken down here, Counselor, we do have an admin that works on in our department and does a lot of the vacant abandoned stuff. That's about $36,000 that we spent on that this year. And then other charges would be from overtime by our staff going out to board up these buildings when we're required to. We had one on Frederick Douglass Road Frederick Douglass Ave the other week, where they had to go out and board it up at night because there was an open window. So things like that, and every time one of my crew goes out, it's not just one person, it's usually two, and we're talking about $250 per person on overtime to board up buildings.
Sure. And the building on Frederick Douglass, is that a building that's technically owned by the Redevelopment Authority?
Correct.
But we did the work,
Yes.
essentially our building.
Unfortunately, Council, when no one else does it,
We do it.
we do it.
I understand. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Farwell.
No, all set
Oh,
on
you made it, okay.
motion.
Then if there's nothing else, a motion has been properly made and seconded to recommend this matter favorably. All in favor? Anyone opposed? The order is recommended favorable.
Thank you.
Item 6, the City Council reauthorize Transportation Program Revolving Fund for FY26 for the purpose of maintaining the transportation of residents ages 60 and older in the City of Brockton. The Transportation Program Revolving Fund shall receive the receipt of payments of donations and fees for transportation. Expenditures from the Transportation Revolving Fund shall be made on the authority and direction of the Director of the Council on Aging, provided that no more than $500,000 may be so expended without further appropriation from the Transportation Revolving Fund during the fiscal year 26. The Director of the Council on Aging shall comply with the reporting requirements of Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53E and 1/2. Invited, Director of COA Janice Fitzgerald, CFO Dr. Troy Clarkson, Mayor Robert Sullivan. And I did receive an email that Ms. Fitzgerald could not attend tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Good evening again, Dr. Clarkson. Floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As I mentioned in my preliminary remarks, this fund has been created by you recently. It has not yet been active because of the location of the senior center. Now that they are back at their former location, I do anticipate that in the coming year this fund will be used, but it has not been used yet, so that's why there's no report on a balance or expenditure. So we're simply asking you to renew it so that it can be begin to be active.
Motion to recommend favorably back to the full City Council.
Second.
On the motion, Councilor Nacastro.
Thank you. You and I exchanged messages about this. Where are we driving the seniors to potentially, and do we really need $500,000 in this account?
So the councilor earlier today asked a very good question, and the discretion for setting the maximum spending amount on those funds rests solely with the council. When we created the fund, we recommended that amount, which is on the high side, because we really weren't sure what the level of activity would be. I'm not certain, but Janice, I know when we created the fund, discussed it with you, and I can go back and look at those minutes, but it's probably higher than it needs to be. What I would suggest is we'll give it a year to see what kind of activity it is, and when we come back next year to renew it once more, you can certainly lower that number if we think that you don't need that amount of spending.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilors. Anyone else? Is a motion made?
Yeah, motion made.
Motion was made, properly seconded to recommend this matter favorably. All in favor? Anyone opposed? The order is recommended favorable.
Item 7, ordered that the City Council reauthorize Comcast Revolving Fund for fiscal year 26 from all cash receipts from Comcast franchise fees in excess of $675,000 pursuant to the cable license contract, and that further that the expenditure from this fund shall not exceed $750,000 without further appropriation during fiscal year 2026. Invited CFO Dr. Troy Clarkson, Mayor Robert Sullivan.
Dr. Clarkson.
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman. This fund is in the larger spreadsheet that I emailed to you. It is not in the condensed one, but I did just get a balance. The balance in the fund right now is $946,222. As you know, the first $675,000 of fees from Comcast actually goes into the city's operating budget, and it's a pass-through. That goes to Brockton Community Access for their payment for the work that they do every year. Everything over that goes into this fund, and it's used for a variety of purposes. All, of course, have to be within the four corners of how the fund was established. Things like equipment, for the performance stage at the high school, additional cameras, AV equipment such as what's before you on your tables tonight. So the fund can be used for a variety of purposes as long as it can go back and be tied directly to public access television or the ability of people to access public access television. So it's something that's quite active and has been used for quite a long time. And any expenditure greater than $750,000 does have to come to the council for authorization.
Motion to recommend favorably.
Second.
On the motion, Councilor Farwell.
On the motion, Dr. Clarkson, I looked at, well, let me back up a minute. The money that comes into the city is 5% of the revenues that's derived from the customer base in Brockton, am I correct?
I believe you are. That's in the contract with
franchise fee?
Comcast. Yeah.
Are you aware that, and I looked at their Form 990, Brockton Community Cable Television, are you aware that I think they're sitting on like $700,000 or $800,000 in cash in an account, if I'm reading their tax return properly? And I don't expect you to comment on that tonight, but what I'd like to see, councilors, is I'd like to see their budget. In other words, I understand some of the employees just formed a union over there because of some issues. Where is the money going? How many people are employed? I don't need to know the names. What are the different job titles? What are they being paid? And I just want to make sure we're not giving a private nonprofit corporation $675,000 with no strings attached of money that our residents have paid in, and we really don't know that much about how it's being spent. So if you would do that, I have no problem with the revolving fund, but I'd like a little more level of detail.
Sounds good. I will scrutinize that 990 and then have a conversation with BCA about providing us a budget.
And by the way, they're on a calendar year as opposed to a fiscal year. I don't believe they have filed their 990 for 2023 yet, believe it or not. I think the last one I looked at was 2022, but it's all public record.
Right, okay.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Castro.
Thank you. Good evening. Well, what I was going to say is, or I was going to ask is, historically, how long have we been placing $675,000 in here?
I've been here 6 years, and it's been every year, and I believe it was prior to that, so
Long time.
I think during Councilor Rodriguez's tenure as mayor, we did renew the MOU with BCA,
Yes.
and it calls for that amount. I don't know prior to that when it was negotiated or renegotiated, but I'm sure we'd have documentation we can share with you.
I'd be interested to know if they are sitting on about $800,000, because what I was going to say is, every expense known to man has increased in the last 5 years. Shouldn't we be giving them more money? But if they have a robust savings that they're sitting on, perhaps that's not necessary. I am aware, though, from speaking with some of the people over there, that part of the reason the employees were unionizing was to be paid more money and to get more recognition and benefits and stuff. So I would be interested in knowing more before we get into our budget negotiations.
Okay,
I'll follow up with you.
great.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilor. The motion was made, right?
Yeah, yes.
Councilors, a motion has been made and properly seconded. All in favor? Anyone opposed? The order is recommended favorably.
Item 8, ordered that the following named sum be and the same is hereby transferred as the same was submitted by the mayor as follows. Transfer of $10,000 from auditor part-time salaries to auditor goods and supplies. Invited City Auditor Irene Giannopoulos, CFO Dr. Troy Clarkson.
Dr. Clarkson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know the auditor did reach out and note that she was not able to attend tonight. As always, I provided you over the weekend some background information on the agenda items, and in discussions with the auditor, they would like this transfer to be approved really for routine office management costs, including office supplies, Storage, as you know, unlike other records, the records of the auditor's office, including payroll records, the actual physical records have to be kept, whereas others can be digitized. So they've been storing and using services for packaging and moving and things like that. So this is just some routine expenses related to all of that.
Motion to
Any
recommend favorably.
Second.
A motion is made, properly seconded. All in favor? Anyone opposed? The order is recommended favorably.
Item 9, ordered that the City Council authorizes the acceptance and expenditure of the total grant funds in the amount of $500,000 from Massachusetts Clean Energy Center to the Department of Public Works. Invited DPW Commissioner Pat Hill, CFO Dr. Troy Clarkson.
I can
Commissioner
feel
Hill,
his
Dr.
presence
Clarkson
behind me.
again, good evening. Yeah.
Quite a presence. So we applied for this grant to basically put some vehicular charging stations in the downtown area where the city kind of is lacking. It's a no-match grant. We did to get the entire award. We have begun initial discussions with the CEC or Mass CEC to begin our little venture downtown to determine the best areas for them.
Councilman Castro.
Thank you. Good evening, Commissioner Hill
Good evening.
and Mr. Clarkson. So how many charging stations will $500,000 buy us?
So this is for the infrastructure and everything. Each charging station will vary. Typically, charging stations are anywhere from $8,000 to $13,000. As you get into the higher end charging, the level 3 chargers, those are for level 2 chargers. Level 3 chargers are a more rapid charging station. Those are in the ballpark of $70,000, $80,000 a piece. So it'll depend on where we choose the locations, what type of infrastructure is going to be necessary to put those in. But we plan on fully expending the entire $500,000 amount.
Do you have an idea of where you would place them?
Right now, the area that we're focusing on is the downtown, with the courthouse, city hall, a lot of the larger buildings, developments. That's our starting point, Legion Parkway, around the public safety building area. We will expand that once we feel that we have adequate stations downtown.
And who pays for the power?
The city would end up ultimately paying for the power. The intent of these charging stations is to charge. So these will be basically like a charge point charging system where you put your credit card in. The city would be obligated to maintain the chargers, but all the electricity and the expense of the charging station would go back to the city.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Chairman.
you, Councilor.
Motion
Anyone
to
else?
recommend favorably back to the full City
Second.
Council.
Motion is made, properly seconded. All in favor? Anyone opposed? The order is recommended favorably. Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Dr. Clarkson.
Item 10, resolved. Be it resolved by the Brockton City Council to invite Kevin Sullivan of Left Field Project Management to appear before the Finance Committee to discuss and provide an update on the current status of the Brockton High School renovation project. Invited Jim Rogers, owner principal, Kevin Sullivan, project director, Alyssa Chitani, senior project manager, Brian Dakin, senior project manager, Adele Sands, education liaison, Francois Exelome, community liaison, APM.
I just need to log in. Thank you.
Good evening, gentlemen. Thank you for coming before us to discuss this important renovation project. We truly do appreciate your time on this matter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, councilors, for having us. As mentioned, my name is Kevin Sullivan, and I'm serving as a product director and project manager for the Brockton High School project. I'm joined with my left field team members. Really just excited to talk about the project, introduce ourselves at the very beginning of the process, and most importantly, answer your questions. We want to hear your questions, concerns, comments, your ideas. And we're coming to you this early in the process because we want your feedback. This is your city and this is your project. And you know, we'd love to continue to come and give updates quarterly. But really what we're trying to get ahead of is ensuring that you all are not caught off guard at any point in this process, and that you are able to answer questions that may come from your constituents throughout the high school project. I'm I'm going to just introduce the firm really quickly. You'll meet our team members, but certainly feel free to answer questions as they come up. Just really quickly on Left Field, it's a local company. It was established in 2007 by Jim Rogers, who would normally be here. He had a death in the family and unfortunately is at a wake tonight. But it's a local company, which is, I believe, very important. Having worked with a number of larger companies and worked for a larger corporate company, it's really important to be able to just, if you have a question or concern, call the owner of the company on his cell phone. He will answer. He doesn't have to call New York to call Los Angeles to get an answer about your product in Brockton. There's about 49, 50 employees. This project has significant, this firm has significant experience with MSBA school projects. They do other projects in life science and in higher ed, but the bread and butter of this company is large, complicated public school buildings. Really quickly, we have a lot of experience in design to build and see them at risk and certainly do work throughout the region. Next one. Yep, so really quickly, just our team members, as mentioned, Jim Rogers is the principal. You will get to meet him and you'll be seeing him frequently. My name's Kevin Sullivan. Just really quickly about myself. Prior to joining Left Field, I worked for another firm, and prior to working for that firm, I worked for the MSBA. I worked for the Mass School Building Authority for almost 14 years and worked on 150 public school construction projects. So, as you can imagine, very excited about this project. Alicia Shatani is also part of our day-to-day team. She couldn't be here tonight, but she'll be an integral member, and she's actually local to the area. And I'll pass it on to Brian.
Sounds good. Thank you for all your time. Council, my name's Brian Dakin. I've been doing owner's project management work exclusively with MSBA schools for the last 15 years. Before that, for about 12 years, I worked in public sector architecture. And I know we typically bring a pretty big team to the table, but where I slip in as one of the senior project managers here really is in management of architectural details, technical production, scheduling, budgeting, permitting, et cetera, and we'll get into a little bit of that in more detail. We'll pass it over to Adele and Francois for a second.
My name's Adele Sands. I'm sort of the outlier of the group.
Adele, everything's being recorded, so if we could just get you two on the microphone, that'd be great. Thank you.
Adele Sands, 30 years in education. I was an English teacher, a school principal, a special education director. I ended my career in education as a school superintendent, where I oversaw a complete campus renovation, 6 buildings, new construction and renovation, then came over to Left Field to be the education liaison. So I am the conduit between the educators, the construction team, the project management team, and the architects.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Francois Exelom. I will serve as the community liaison in APM. My background is over 20 years in higher education. Served as far as registrar to assistant dean of graduate enrollment management. And really super excited to be here and share this opportunity with the city of Brockton and everyone that's in there. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll minimize the musical chairs. Thank you for your patience. So just our project experience, again, Left Field is local. This is, you can see the number of towns and cities and state agencies that we've worked with. So we've worked in small towns, we've worked in very large cities, and we're honored to hopefully add Brockton to this map. And as I mentioned, we have a lot of experience in all types of public projects, but our bread and butter is really K through 12 schools, specifically large, complicated projects. As you can see here, we've worked on Revere High School, Durfee High School in Fall River, and Waltham High School. I'm actually just going to let Brian talk about Revere for a moment.
Sure. So Revere High School is a project that's near and dear to my heart. I was born and raised there. I live there. I'm a resident. It's certainly unique doing a large project where you know so many people. But there's a lot of things about the Revere High School project that are similar. It's not a vocational school, so it's dissimilar in that respect. But Revere is a densely populated, multicultural, and underserved community that is also land-starved. There's nowhere to put anything. We did a whole lot of study in Revere about how to fit a high school of this size, 420,000 square foot building, serving 2,500 students. Behind the existing high school, we looked at other city parcels, we looked at privately owned parcels. Ultimately, this project, the city of Revere utilized eminent domain to take the former Wonderland Greyhound racetrack. They acquired that a few years ago. And I'm happy to say we are through the design development phase into 60% construction drawings. We're in a very intense state and federal permitting process. The project's on budget, project's moving ahead. So there's a lot of lessons learned on a school of that magnitude happening in this financial environment in a community that we really need to balance cost and education. So we thought it's a good comp to what you folks have going on here. Even though it's not a vocational school, we've certainly done a number of them as well. So I wanted to give you a little bit of a flavor of what this feasibility study is going to be like. And I like to think about the early part of these feasibility studies as sort of two train tracks running in parallel that eventually merge. One of those train tracks is entirely centered around the program for the building. And when I say program, I mean the academic program, the vocational programs, athletic programs, community programs. We will be working with the architectural team, who is not yet selected through the MSBA process, to understand everything that happens in that building from a programmatic point of view and what works and what doesn't work in that existing building. So that process in general is referred to as educational visioning. It's a key part of the process where those of us who are on the architecture side and those other folks on our team that are going to speak a little more, Del and Francois, about community engagement, staff engagement, student engagement, all that stuff's extremely important for the educational visioning process to really come up with, again, what works in this building, what doesn't work, what do you need in the future, what's going to work down the line, what are the goals. So that whole process is one of the train tracks. The other train track is centered around really getting to know the site. And this is it's a big site, that's a good thing, but it has a lot of existing uses. We need to get to the bottom of when those are used, how they're used, by whom. We need to understand what's alongside the site, behind the site, so that ultimately when we're talking about phasing a construction project, we understand all the neighbors, all the abutters, both civic abutters and privately owned homes, how not to impact them. We also have a lot of research to do in terms of environmental permitting issues. There's a whole number of paths that can define a project schedule related to, there's always local permitting, but there very well might be state environmental permitting. We could end up with EPA and Army Corps involvement, depending on how some of that stuff goes. And finally, there are fields on this site. It's most likely those fields are deeded to the school and run by the school and not subject to what's called Article 97. But we have some research to do with folks in City Hall to understand that for sure. Because if Article 97 does come into play, there are rules of engagement and a process of how we could replace those fields or build on them that will affect the schedule. So those two train tracks ultimately come together in the next within the next 2 years, and we look at 3 different types of projects. This is required of the MSBA system. One is a simple code upgrade of that building. Literally just taking the building and the walls that are there, bringing it up to code. We do not know of any time a municipality has ever selected that for 3 reasons. One is that it doesn't address any programmatic deficiencies of the building. Most often, as is the case here, you don't have the space you need, you don't have the modern science labs you need, and just bringing the building up to code isn't going to address any of that. It's also the second reason, the most intrusive option to the ongoing delivery of education. It's really hard to work our way in a phased manner through an occupied building without putting kids in temporary classrooms out in the parking lot for years and cycling them through the building. So it's really an in-your-face option. And third is that it's never cheap, especially in a building of this vintage and architectural style. It's just not a cheap building to bring up to code. Second project type is some degree of an addition renovation. A lot of that initial work I was talking about a minute ago will, as we figure out the program, the academic program, athletic program, community programs, vocational programs, we will come up with at least one scheme, maybe a few, that uses existing pieces of this building, but builds a new addition for the space that you don't have or the more modern space you might need, labs, et cetera. So there will be options that have a partial renovation and a new component. Again, those are in the middle. Any project here that's going to work inside the perimeter of that building probably needs temporary classrooms somewhere, most likely on site. Those temporary classrooms not only are expensive, but they're not ideal for the delivery of education. Lastly, we'll develop a number of schemes with the architect for all new construction. We'll start on this site. It's a relatively limited site to put up a building of this size, but we think we could figure it out. We think we could get it phased safely. And the last thing I'll say, referring back to Revere, is that we have a lot of experience looking at alternate sites. There's not a lot of space. We've already been looking around on Google Earth, on GIS maps. There's not really many places to put this, and if you really start talking about the solution Revere did, which is eminent domain, it's a schedule and budget driver. So we would like to start with places that the city already owns. This site, this is the bullseye. But if the school building committee in the city would like us to analyze other sites, we've certainly done that before and can.
Thank you, Brian. Really quickly, just I want to give you a snapshot on our schedule. MSBA's process it's incredibly comprehensive, prescriptive, and it takes a long time. They really require, in order to access their sometimes hundreds of millions of dollars, that you have to follow their process to a T. And from left to right, we are currently in the forming the project team phase. We're the owner's project manager, and we're in the process of trying to bring an architect on board. That's actually happening tomorrow. We're going in front of the MSBA's designer selection panel. We're going to review some of the firms that have submitted for this project, and then in 2 weeks, on the 22nd of April, if those however many firms are shortlisted, we'll interview them and make a selection and negotiate. So we believe by May, we'll have an architect on board, and then we'll start the real work, which is the feasibility study. And as Brian indicated, it's a long process, which includes, educational program envisioning, as well as exploring other sites and really determining what the most cost-effective, educationally appropriate solution is. And we're going to be coming to you at every step of the way to make sure that you understand where we were, where we are now, and where we're going. So this is just a high-level schedule. Once the architect's on board, we're going to add more detail and make sure everyone understands what to expect. Next slide. And we're going to invite Adele and Francois back up to close up.
So one of the most fun parts of this work is working with the students, and we are very excited to be working with the Brockton High School students. These students deserve an excellent place to go to school. They deserve a building that reflects the work that they are doing and that their teachers are doing. I have known Principal McCaskill for 20 years as an educator, and he's doing remarkable things at the school, and our goal is to get into the school at many phases of construction and work with the students, not just in the construction piece, but in the design, in the also with hands-on exercises. Introducing them to various careers and opportunities, workforce development. So I'm going to let Francois talk a little bit about that.
Absolutely. Just a quick story before I get started is, this past summer I had a chance to speak with the Brockton middle schoolers and the career day. And it was such a joy to get a chance to speak to them and share with them about, construction and some of the options that they may have. And what's so special about Brockton, the teacher there allowed me to speak in Haitian Creole and part of this. And the eyes of the students who spoke that language really lit up. And it was just a beautiful thing. And to see that, one, the city embraces the multiculturalism that's here, and the fact that we can communicate effectively with these students and, parents as we move forward to working with this city. And so as we go to the next slide, you'll see some of the ways that we do community outreach, ranging from, surveys to monthly flyers, social media, and we will actually have a website that is transcribed in multiple languages in order for us to communicate effectively with everyone that's part of the stakeholders here.
And one of the main reasons for that is regardless of the process, regardless of how much work you put into this process, if the community is unaware, if the community is not getting information often and complete, then there's opportunity for people they don't know what's going on. It's very difficult with something like this. And then what happens is misinformation moves very quickly throughout the community. So we work both ways. We will have surveys. We will ensure that we will bring communication to us so that we know what people are thinking in the community, but we also will be going out to the community. We will ensure that the mayor and the school building community lets us know where they want us to be to ensure that we go out into the community to tell everybody what's happening every step of the way. And we've already spoken to the superintendent, to the principal. We can go to PTO meetings. We will do this hard work so that when your constituents come to you, they will know, and you will know everything that's going on.
I believe that's it. Happy to answer questions.
Great. Thank you for that presentation. Councilors. Councilor Castro.
Thank you. Thank you. That was a fine presentation. And the clerk is going to ask you for a copy of it tomorrow that you can distribute to all of us. And
We already have it.
The clerk will distribute it tomorrow, yes.
Even better, we don't have to ask. Thank you. I guess what I wanted to say is we're so glad to have the opportunity to pursue this improvement. We desperately need it, and just do a really good job. And it would be wonderful to have contact information for you, so that when a constituent calls me, I can either call you and ask the question or pass your information on. And Ms. Sands, on this side of the room, we're all loving your mermaid hair or your fairy hair. It's very attractive, and I'm sure the kids love it.
Well, I can tell you, I was in Washington, D.C. for the weekend with my 30-year-old daughter and her friends, and they were doing it, so I thought I would just jump right into it and enjoy it as well.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And just to thank you for the feedback. You will have all of our cell phone numbers, and we'll make sure that we're available for either you or any constituents.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Rodriguez.
Well, it's not a question, but it's more like a suggestion. I'm glad you guys actually made a presentation about communicating with the community, especially with the diversity that we have within this community, because there's a very good chance that we might have to go to the voters asking them for a debt exclusion. And if we don't do a decent job in communicating with them the needs and how this thing is going to look like, and please help us. And if we do it as projects have been done in this city, very selective, we select a group of friends and families to deal with things. I keep bringing this stuff up, and we don't include the entire community on this, it'll be very hard for us to go out and ask the taxpayers to come on board and kind of help us with this project. So I'm glad that at least there's a serious consideration of an effort to try to get hold of this entire city, which is a little, the makeup of the city is a little different than when that high school was first built. So we need to take that into consideration, that things have changed along the way. So I think it's important for all of us to get on board with that.
I appreciate that. The school is doing so many amazing things. I mean, I am constantly blown away. I see it on LinkedIn, and Instagram, and I follow all of these. The students are doing extraordinary work in all these different areas. And I think that that's a piece of it, is getting the community not to just look at it as a building project, but to look at it as the future of Brockton. These students deserve this. They're doing their work. They're putting in their effort. And I absolutely agree with you 100%. Whatever we can do to bring the community to the high school and say that we're all going to do this together.
Once you get to that level of renditions and things like that, I think we need to make it as public as possible to help us sell, because we are all going to have to do this. I mean, I was part of that initial group, and I think, Jeff, you are now part of that group. One of the things that we said is that if we all chime in and we're all speaking the same language, where the mayor, the council, the school committee, and everybody is singing the same tune, it'll be an easier sell to the entire community. But up here, we're only 11 votes, you know, and 11 votes isn't going to cut it. So we're going to need the taxpayers and the voters of the city to come along and help us get this project done. So I think it's important for us to do as much as we possibly can in terms of getting the whatever message we can get out to the community, whatever pictures we can share with the community, whatever severe, enlarged renditions we can share with the community will help that process along the way.
And we will ask you for your help with this. I mean, if there is a place you want us to go, we will go. If opening day of the baseball, we will be there. Any, community event, we will be there. Whatever help you need from us to do exactly that, we will be there. This is something we take, is very meaningful. And Jim Rogers, the owner of this company, he really does want to change kids' lives. So we are a group that means that very sincerely.
Thank you.
And just to add to that, thank you, Adele. I really appreciate those comments. Adele and I just worked on a project 2 towns over, in between September and January, when the actual vote was. We attended 90 different events locally, whether it's one person or 200 people at a council on aging. We will go anywhere, anytime to talk about a project. But again, we'll rely on you to tell us, to make sure we're not missing anyone.
Right, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilor Rodriguez. Councilor Tavares.
Good evening. Thank you so much. Actually, you just mentioned, I literally work on my Ward 2 meeting. I like to invite you guys to attend those meetings as well, just to provide those information, like my colleague just said, to work together with us. I don't know if I'm going to be sending email to, if any specific, you guys, I can email all the information when I get exactly the right date. Will the ward meeting I plan to do between the 23rd and this month, or May 3rd? I'm just waiting for the final confirmation before I send all the information out. I don't know who I'm going to be email to you, to you.
Yes.
All right.
I'll make sure you have my contact information.
Yes, can I have it? Actually, I don't. He's going to be provided.
I'll make sure I share that with
Okay,
the
thank
council,
you.
all the councilors.
All right, thank you. That's all has to happen.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Thank you, Councilor.
Motion to recommend favorably back to the full city council.
Second.
And just on the motion, just quickly. So looking at your previous experience with, you said Revere and Durfee, were those all new construction projects? Or were any of those entail potential renovation projects?
Those 2 in particular were all new. Most of the high schools we've done end up all new for various reasons. Part of it to keep in mind is that really there's an inefficiency in renovation, specifically due to having to move kids around and still house them and give them some appropriate areas. So a lot of the renovation schemes, when you pin them up against all new schemes, don't save as much money as you think. But we have done a number of fully occupied renovations. We will look into it here, and we like to think the data will bear out whether you folks, as the real stakeholders here, think that's the way we'd move forward.
Understood. And Councilors, just for your information, this is going to be the first of many discussions that we have as a council with left field. Obviously, they're about to enter into contract negotiations, get their team set up, and then we'll move on to the actual feasibility study. So I'm hoping that sometime, and I'll work with Mrs. Sullivan, if we can get you back here later this year as that feasibility study is being discussed. We can just get more detail both to this council and to the community at large throughout this process.
Absolutely. Thank you for having us.
Great. Thank you for coming before us, and if you could extend our condolences to Mr. Rogers and his loss from this council. Did you have something?
Yes, just to enter into the record, because I think we have to understand our roles and responsibilities, we would certainly want to know the progress that you make in terms of determining what type of project might proceed and the cost.
Absolutely.
Speaking personally, I would not automatically assume that you're going to get a debt exclusion, because this is not a community where we have people who have a lot of excess income. And I also, every city has a charter, and Section 34 of our charter indicates that no site for a school building, no alteration to a school building may be done without the consent of the school committee or the mayor. So our role is really very limited. I mean, we can talk to you about what we think as residents should be done, but in terms of the council voting to have you do anything or directing you to do anything, we have absolutely no authority. The school committee and the mayor, who is a member of the school committee, will have to give you your marching orders, so to speak. So certainly we'll accept any information, but just try to understand our role and responsibility here, because I think it's important that we do follow the law and we understand there is an elected body that handles school alterations, school buildings, school plans, site acquisitions, and all of those other decisions that have to go with the project. So, thank you.
Understood.
Thank you, Councilor Farwell, and we appreciate that. We're really here to introduce ourselves and then continue to, give you updates. But we appreciate that.
It's nice to see you again, by the way.
Likewise.
Thank you all for joining us this evening. If there's nothing further, a motion has been made and properly seconded. All in favor? Anyone opposed? The resolve is recommended favorably. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Resolved, be it resolved by the Brockton City Council to invite Edmund Starzyk of the Charter Contracting Group to appear before the Finance Committee to provide an update on the Brockton Yards development at the CSX Downtown Trout Brook property. Invited Edmund Starzyk, Director of Development, Charter Contracting Company, and any staff deemed appropriate.
You ain't know.
I think we're close.
Well, good evening, gentlemen, and thank you for coming before us this evening to discuss this project. We just had our team regarding the renovations of Brockton High, or even potentially new construction. It's through new development in our city that we'll be able to pay for this new Brockton High. So we're much appreciative that you are taking the lead on the CSX Trout Brook property, tentatively known as Brockton Yards. And, we appreciate your time, interest, and your commitment to Brockton to develop this important project. So welcome, gentlemen.
Well, thank you for having us, Mr. Chairman, and I want to thank the council for giving us the opportunity to present this briefing on the Brockton Yards project. Just by way of introduction, I'm Mason Sandell, and I'm Chief Commercial Officer of the Charter Companies. And this is Ed.
I'm Ed Starzyk, Director of Development for the Charter Companies.
Thought it made sense to start with a very brief overview of Charter for folks who aren't familiar with us. We're 28 years in business and the second largest MBE in the Commonwealth. At our heart, we are a brownfield redevelopment firm with an affiliated environmental remediation and civil construction capability. Together, these capabilities allow us to tackle and provide certainty of outcome on some of the region's most complex brownfield redevelopment challenges. Pleased to offer an update on this project. Happy to take questions at the end, or if folks are comfortable asking questions as we go, that's okay too. So just a quick overview of the project background, sort of how we got here. The Trout Brook URP process, I believe, began in 2019. The BRA and the city launching sorry. Oh, we need full present mode. There you go. Thank you. Launching the Trout Brook URP process, 2020 and 2021 saw that work its way through the approvals process, culminating in 2023 with the BRA issuing a very thoughtful and comprehensive RFI and subsequently an RFP for the project, through which Charter was first shortlisted and then ultimately selected to be the preferred developer for the project. We entered into an agreement with the BRA in October of 2023 and have spent the last 16 months advancing the project through the assemblage process and the environmental due diligence process. This is the project location. The 45-acre Trout Brook URP footprint, bounded on the north by Elliott Street, on the south by Court Street, and on the west by the commuter rail. The 45 acres comprise 11 different parcels that are owned by 7 different landowners. Won't get into the environmental conditions here. I think we'll tackle that a little bit later, but just for an overview now of our redevelopment concept.
I'd like to run through some of the highlights of our development concept as it exists today, and it still is very much in development. But at its heart, it's a 45-acre brownfield cleanup project, as Mason mentioned. A redevelopment opportunity, a tremendous redevelopment opportunity amidst a number of environmental justice neighborhoods. There is significant environmental remediation required to allow for residential reuse of the site. Not all of the land, it's a mixed bag. Conditions in some places are serious, and other places they are sort of just indicative of typical past urban industrial use. Of course, the site is located directly adjacent to the downtown commuter rail station, which presents a tremendous opportunity for transit-oriented development, which, as you all know, is something that the state is pushing very seriously. At build-out, our concept planning now shows that we could accommodate about 1,300 units of housing. That would be a mix of multifamily housing as well as townhome housing. And we'll show you how that lays out on the next slide. In addition to the housing, we're considering 40,000 square feet of ground floor commercial uses. There'll be retail, service type uses. The Trout Brook runs through the project site. You wouldn't always know it's there because it's been sort of buried, and in fact, it's covered for a significant portion of its length on the site. But what we're proposing to do is to daylight the brook, to remove that cover, and to restore it and create what we call a linear park along both sides of the brook that would allow for there'd be a walkway along the brook that would connect the neighborhoods to the north, to the neighborhoods to the south, and similarly other just open space amenities for relaxation and play. The project will require a host of new public streets to provide access to the different development parcels. We're working right now with the state on Mass Works grants to fund both the design and the eventual construction of that infrastructure. That would be, our intention is that would be turned over to the city upon completion and acceptance. In total, the project looks to be potentially a $500 million private investment. We're not, again, it's a concept, so that's a round number for now. It will generate significant new tax revenues, significant construction jobs with a local preference, as well as permanent jobs in within that 40,000 square feet of commercial use and also in building management. I mentioned the state grants already. Here's a conceptual image, sort of laying out the site for you, what we're thinking of. Just to orient you, down in the lower left of the page where you see the T logo, that's the approximate location of the downtown commuter rail site on just at Court Street. So the rest of the property that you see there is within the urban renewal plan and includes properties that were labeled for acquisition by the Brockton Redevelopment Authority and their RFI and RFP. You'll see that we've clustered the larger multifamily buildings. Those are 4- and 5-story buildings. Those are clustered to the west along the commuter rail tracks to maximize their proximity to commuter rail. Most of these parcels are going to be within a 5-minute walk of the commuter rail station. Then off to the right, after you cross the brook, we've taken the density down some there to more of a townhome density to harmonize with the surrounding neighborhoods. I just wanted to go into a little bit more detail on the proposed linear park. This is our landscape architect's original concept for it. Again, you can see the route of the brook. It will be restored. We'll remove invasive species, get it back to good condition. Where you see the road crossing over the brook there, that's actually where the brook is decked today, so that decking will be significantly reduced. We're envisioning public gathering areas, a shade pavilion, informal playground areas. Total cost of this open space is approximately $6 million, and the design for this park is also funded through our 2024 MassWorks grant that we applied for with the BRA.
And then just finally, a brief update on the land acquisition process. As we said, there's 11 parcels with 7 different owners, and we are in active and direct discussion with all of the landowners. And we expect to reach closure on the majority of the acreage later this summer, with critical mass by the end of the year would be our goal.
Thank you. Well, thank you for that presentation. I mean, I've been supportive of this project, since we were discussing a master plan for the Trout Brook area, and the fact that we're almost within a year of closing on this property, and really maybe within 2 years of putting shovels in the ground, where this project can actually come to fruition. It's something that this council, this city's been working on, for about a decade now, and so the fact that we're this close is, really heartening. I also want to recognize the new chair of the BRA, who's with us this evening, Eliza Wilson. Thank you, Dr. Wilson, for being with us this evening. Councilors, I'm going to open up this for discussion. Councilor Griffin.
Good evening, gentlemen. I'm really glad to see this project is moving forward, because prior to being in the council, I was former chairman of the BRA, so I think I've met you both several times.
Yes, I think so.
My first question is, CSX is always a little bit hesitant to let people out into the property to take core samples so we could determine what type of environmental mitigation is going to be necessary.
Yep.
Has that improved?
We've had a very productive series of discussions with CSX. I think, one of Charter's kind of core capabilities is the ability to work with sort of large public companies that are landowners of sort of orphan real estate. And they've incredibly been actually very communicative. And so we were able to shake hands on the framework of a deal earlier this year, and we're working forward to close ideally this summer would be the goal.
But have any actually samples been done? Have you conducted any samples?
We haven't done any sampling in addition to what had been done during the previous sort of regulatory closeout that brought the property to closure to the
Right.
commercial industrial standard.
Right.
But with our LSP, we've been able to identify a really solid game plan such that once we're able to take title, we're going to complete incremental sampling that we need to do to get the regulatory closure to ideally to a residential standard, within 12 months.
I know before we guys were looking at the, historical businesses that have been there and operated throughout the years, and the environmental mitigation, I think it's going to be pretty heavy in some areas, and other areas not so much. Is that still the prevailing thought on the environmental mitigation that's going to be necessary?
I think that's a fair assessment. I mean, if we sort of go to, I don't know if you can see the cursor. Is my cursor showing up? Yeah, the bulk of the sort of environmental conditions sort of center around the former Brockton iron and steel footprint.
Right.
And then some of the
That seemed to be
encroachment.
ground zero for where the big problems would be, right?
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Okay, well, again, it's good seeing both of you again. I'm glad this thing is progressing, and anything I can do to help you with this body, you have my contact information. Feel free to reach out to me. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Farwell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Gentlemen, I'm certainly in favor of seeing development. I do worry about finances. You were here, I think, when you heard about a pretty significant school project that's going to require funding. The 7 property acquisitions that you said you were close to closing on them, you said we. Who is we? In other words, let's just take CSX. They're actively looking to sell their property, and if so, what is the asking price? Not the negotiating. I'm not looking for private negotiations. What's the asking price?
I wouldn't want to jinx us by kind of sharing that information publicly on the
Then let me say this. You've talked to Fenton Associates, and they're willing to sell?
I should say that they're open to the idea.
Well, I understand. I mean, I'd be open to selling my house for $10 million, but that doesn't mean I might do it. Capital Waste, they're interested in selling?
CSX is the bulk of the property, right, at 30-plus acres.
But you said all 7, you're close to closing.
No, I'm sorry, I didn't, I'll be more precise. We're in active discussions with all 7, but we're not close to closing with all 7 at all.
And you've talked to the Club National, the Franklin?
We have.
You have about it?
We have, yeah.
Okay. And Yellow Taxi and Fitness Auto Body?
That's right.
Okay.
Yep.
So without getting into something that jinxes you,
sure,
you have been given, at least by CSX, a number that would satisfy them for them to part with the property?
That's right.
Okay.
Yes.
And who would provide the money for the property?
In this instance, that would be capital that Charter's bringing to the table.
So you would purchase the property?
That's right. That's
All
right.
right, so
That's right.
I just want to get the full flavor here.
Sure.
So you would purchase the property and then you would develop it? And you would obviously have private investors bring in the $500 million
Correct.
or
That's right.
whatever might be required. Who knows with tariffs now, it might be.
Depending where it's coming from,
It might
I
be more
suppose.
than $500 million, but.
That's right.
Not if it's made in the USA.
That's right.
Yep.
Well, I think that's good. Then if that's the way you're proceeding, as long as you're not representing that the city would purchase all of this property and that we would assume the risk and liability of taking over this property, then I don't have a problem with it.
No, and that's candidly, I think that's our role as facilitator of this project overall, and that's how we see it. And our goal candidly is to get to a willing buyer, willing seller arrangement with all 7 of these property owners.
Well,
that's our goal.
Again, I think it's a great location. You're going to have a brand-new public safety facility less than an air mile away. I think you have some opportunities here, and we appreciate your efforts. As I say, my role is just to protect the city and the taxpayers, and so that's why I ask these questions that I just want out into the public domain.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Anyone else? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion.
Motion to recommend favorably.
Second.
Motion has been made and properly seconded to recommend this matter favorably. All in favor? All opposed? This matter is recommended favorably. Thank you again, gentlemen, for joining us this evening, and thank you for the presentation.
Thank you.
Enjoy your
Thank you for
evening.
having us. Yeah, appreciate it.
Item 12, resolved, whereas the Boys and Girls Club of Metro South has a facility at 233 Warren Avenue providing programs and services of critical importance to the youth of our city, and whereas the city formed a partnership with this organization in its plans to construct a new and expanded facility to meet the increasing needs of children, and whereas private investors donated millions of dollars to the planned renovation and expansion of programs at the Brockton facility, and whereas it is beneficial to have an update on the progress of the development plans. Now therefore be it resolved that Mr. Derek Heim, Chief Executive Officer of the Boys and Girls Club of Metro South, and such other staff members or project participants as he deems appropriate be invited to a meeting of the City Council to provide information on the status of the project in Brockton and how the council may be of continuing assistance to his organization. Invited Mr. Derek Heim, Chief Executive Officer of the Boys and Girls Club, and any staff deemed appropriate, and City Solicitor Megan Bridges.
Good evening, Mr. Heim. Welcome to the Brockton City Council chambers and discussing this really important project, the expansion of the Boys and Girls Club here in the city of Brockton. We're just so appreciative of the, the resources that the Boys and Girls Club brings to the city of Brockton and what you do for our children. So just thank you for that. Thank you for coming in this evening. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Councilor Thompson, and thank you, councilors, for the floor this evening. For those that I have not met, my name is Derek Heim. I have the privilege of serving as the president and CEO of Boys and Girls Club of Metro South, the largest youth-serving agency in the Metro South region, with youth and teen programs here in the city of Brockton, including our facility at 233 Warren Avenue, 2 sites and public housing complexes here in the city, operator of 3 hydroponic farms serving more than 22 emergency feeding programs in this city, and the fiscal agent and leader for many community-led initiatives. As well, we operate in the city of Taunton, including a traditional clubhouse and a 100-acre summer camp where more than 400 Brockton youth go each summer to enjoy their summer. With me tonight, there were parents of the club, some who have had to leave, and residents whose children attend the club and have a majority stake in the success of the club. Simply put, our youth and parents are our shareholders at the Boys and Girls Clubs, and we share in the commitment and their passion to see this project forward. I intend to keep my remarks brief. As many of you are aware, I've been fighting this fight in the City of Champions for nearly 5 years now. So tonight I stand before you in a plea for all of us to dig in, think creatively, and put the political tenor aside and find a way to bring this amazing opportunity to light. Most important for the Brockton youth who still sit on a wait list today that's nearly doubled in 5 years. Upon the conclusion of my short remarks, you'll hear from Kyrene Snap, a North Junior High teen member who will share her club's story, one which resembles the hundreds of young people who are affected by the club's work each and every day. In the way of review for you, in December 9th of 2019, I met with at that time Mayor Rodriguez on the thought to spur a private-public partnership to bring a new Boys and Girls Club to this city. A lot has happened since then: a pandemic, a new administration in the mayor's office, and the discovery of a failed underground culvert located on the parcel. On September 21, 2021, the Brockton School Committee and the Finance Committee and the full council deemed a portion of land known as Keith Field as surplus and released an RFP related to its development. In early 2022, the club and the city reached an agreement under an exclusive negotiating agreement and began its work to raise funds, commence due diligence, and develop its vision. Since that time, the club has expended $393,000 in engineering, legal, and architectural services, all which have been provided as exhibits to the city. Our project is shovel-ready, has received zoning approval, and has substantial seed funding, but we stand at a juncture in the road regarding a necessary easement to access the parcel and provide the necessary utilities. Some may ask, how did the club not know this was going to be an obstacle to the parcel? And my response to that is most certainly we did, as it was actually cited in the original RFP. Additionally, we negotiated at the time of the ENA that the city and the school committee would act in good faith to resolve the matter prior to closing, as the city wanted to protect the integrity of the gift of the Keith family, while at the same time we understood that both would be achieved, was verbalized and agreed. Today's March 7th, 2025, and over 5 years later, our organization is more than eager today than it was 5 years ago. Our donors are fatigued, but their pledges remain strong, but have been strained as the project has been delayed time and time again. Tonight, we respectfully ask this body, city leaders at all levels, to make this a priority and help us achieve the goal of keeping our young people safe in quality after-school and evening programming. The city of Brockton deserves this for our kids, and the kids deserve it even more. I challenge all of us to look at each and every youth and teen in this city because they need a place like the club. I'm happy to answer questions that you might have, but prior to that, I'd ask you to indulge me in allowing Kyrene just a few moments to share her story of what the club has done for her.
Thank you. Oh, gosh.
Good evening, Kyrene. Thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you. I'd like to say that I personally believe that having no potential is impossible. It may be something that you do not actively take interest in or something that you never considered, but that does not mean that the potential is not there. This place opened my eyes to see the things that I could be, the opportunities I hold the power to harness, and the dreams that can come true, and the conflicts I wish to change, even if only a little bit at a time. And the place that I speak so highly of is the Boys and Girls Club of Metro South in Brockton, Massachusetts. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Kyrene Snape. I currently attend North Junior High School, and I have been attending Boys and Girls Club Metro South since I was 7 years old. Why do I declare this so proudly? Because I've seen all these miracles happen firsthand. Firstly, Boys and Girls Club makes everyone feel cared about, supported, and included the minute they walk in. Not only everyone is treated fairly with equity, but everyone works together in some way or another to create a beautiful harmony among each other through interests and personalities. And that leads me to my second point. Secondly, opportunities that they give are not just things to entertain interest, but show real-world problems and possible solutions. In late 2024, I participated in a program called Work-Based Learning. That program taught me how to manage my money, separate wants from needs, and how to prioritize. And in the end, I received a $500 stipend. I currently participate in an internship at the Freight Farm where I learn to handle the plants, care for the atmosphere, learn how to plant, seed, and harvest plants properly with Tajmir, an intern I work with. At the end of this internship, I would have learned the ins and outs of the Freight Farm and received another $500 stipend. Opportunities like this are given out all year, and each activity teaches different things to the attendants participating to better their futures, which is why we need a place like this, why we need a place like Boys and Girls Club Metro South in our community. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We appreciate that. Great job. Councilors, before we open up the discussion, I just want to recognize a few people in the room. We have former Brockton Mayor Jack Units with us this evening. Thank you for being here and your support of this project. We also have former City Councilor Dennis Iannieri with us this evening. Dennis, thank you for being here. And we have a big supporter of this project who's currently on our school committee, Jorge Vega. Thank you for being here, school committee member Vega. We're going to open this up for discussion. Councilor Farwell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I filed this because I had conversations with Mayor Units and exchanged some information with Mr. Heim, and also spoke with our city solicitor. So I think I'd like to focus on the solicitor for a minute with some questions. See if we can drill down to the issues at hand. Mr. Heim can certainly stay there. Good evening, Madam Solicitor.
Good evening. Hi. How are you?
Okay. I know that you have spent considerable time on this. I understand the school committee actually hired an attorney to be involved in this issue. Where are we, and what is the holdup as far as your perception of the issue?
Thank you for allowing me to be here. We've spent a lot of time on this, and a public conversation is important, I think, so folks know how we got from A to B to Z, I guess, on April 7th, 2025, as Mr. Heim stated. I really don't take any issue with how the timeline was presented. The only thing I would add in terms of context is during the 2022 period, on the E&A conversation. Hold on a second, I'm sorry.
So can we take your conversation either outside or into our antechamber? Thank you, gentlemen.
The only thing I wanted to add to what Mr. Heim said is in 2022, or right before when the culvert issue was discovered through the, I think, club's due diligence.
That is correct.
Before the purchase, there was quite a period of time where there wasn't a plan for the funding of the necessary improvements to use the space as was necessary for the plan. So that's the only thing I'd really add, is Derek did an excellent job outlining from how we got to where. I'm not a decision maker in terms of, I don't have a seat up where you all sit. I do not have a seat where committee member Vega sits. But there's, three kind of outstanding issues, is finalizing what's going to happen with the culvert, which Commissioner Hill was here earlier. We heard from him as a group sometime in beginning of March, what the technology was going to be for repairing the culvert. And I would encourage Mr. Heim to step in if any of this is new or unaware to him, but essentially it's a project. It's a serious project. It's a long piece of culvert that needs replacing, that the city and the club are intending to share in the cost for the necessary improvements. The land disposition document is what comes after the E&A, and it's recorded so that the deed restrictions are able to be known to anyone who wants to look up aspects about the deal. And the hang-up inside the LDA, the remaining hang-up, as Mr. Heim pointed out, is the access. What was made available as surplus, both from the school committee and this body, does not include frontage on Warren or West Elm. So that is where the current source of frustration about getting this project over the goal line lasts, is I don't want to bore you with any unnecessary complications, but most of us remember how hard it was to get the surplus order, everybody on the same page about the surplus order, the school committee to support the actions of the council and vice versa. It was really a coordinated effort, and this is truly a public-private partnership. So what's left now is that same exercise on a much smaller fashion for access to the actual parcel. Right now, there is unfortunately no roadway access to the parcel. The current topics that are on the table are the service road behind the Arnone School. There's a service road next to the church and the current club. Previously, what was discussed was utilizing or asking for an easement through the existing Eagles and or modifying them, refurbishing them. The club offered to, I think, move them, refurbish them, create a method of property access that was suitable for the city. And that is unfortunately where things still stand, is how can they access their parcel? How can the public access their parcel? How can their users access their parcel? And I don't think I missed anything on that, but that's really where things are at the moment, is the way the carve out for what was made available for public advertisement and ultimate purchase that the Boys and Girls Club was awarded was done so to leave enough space for further prospective future use of the field. And so instead of focusing on what we can right now, folks are worried about what may happen sometime down the road that I do not know. I don't have a crystal ball. There are methods of access now, but they need an easement and a surplus order.
So if I were sitting at home, and then really there's nothing funny about this, but I just shake my head. If I were sitting at home, I would be watching this program and I would say,
The city agrees that the Boys and Girls Club of Metro South is a treasure to have in the city, offers programs and services that are important, that the city entered into a partnership with them, that the school committee declared a certain part of land surplus so that it could go to an RFP under 30B, but it was landlocked? I mean, does that make sense to anybody?
As Mr. Heim pointed out, this is an issue that predates both of us sitting at this table. When the carve-out was created, this was known. I think no one predicted that we'd still be sitting here trying to figure this part out.
So having taken part in meetings, both of you, I assume, what is the holdup with getting an easement from the school department, either through that service road at the Arnone School or through some other means? I mean, I just can't imagine that this becomes the stumbling block that halts all progress for all of this time. And, you know, either one of you, please respond.
Respectively, Counselor, we knew that this was landlocked when we responded to the RFP, but if anyone looks at the language that was included in the RFP as well as the language in the ENA, there is a statement where the city was aware of that as well and would negotiate in good faith to find access. This carve-out was done under a previous administration at the school department, previous school committee members. There's been a lot of change in this 5-year period. And I think my only criticism through this whole process is the lack of communication between departments within the city, boards within the city. Less than ideal. The Boys and Girls Club has asked over the period of 5 years for numerous meetings. They were denied. Numerous attempts to get this project over the goal line, punted. We're frustrated, and our donors are equally as frustrated because we believe we're bringing a really great product to the city, and we really think the city should be rolling out the red carpet.
Yep.
And that hasn't happened.
Are you given any excuses for why no meetings?
I'm not sure I want to get into the political tenor of that.
I think we do need to get into the political tenor, because you know what? There's so much BS that goes on in this city, and it's all hidden underground, and I get, you know, I'm at an age where I don't worry about votes, I don't worry about elections. Bring it out in the open, let everyone know what's going on. If the Boys and Girls Club are having these ridiculous political stumbling blocks put in front of them, let's get it out there. Maybe public pressure will be enough to knock some sense into some people. So if you don't mind, I'd be glad to hear whatever you have to offer.
My hopes tonight is to achieve that the young person who just sat in front of me should say it all, that's why this needs to happen. I don't care about personalities. I really don't care who's the mayor, who's not the mayor. At the end of the day, my job is to advocate for the kids and the families that come through the front door. So I will continue to do that regardless of the obstacles that are placed in front of me, but I will tell you over the course of 5 years, numerous obstacles with very little appreciation for what we do for the community.
Madam Solicitor, does the mayor and the city council have the authority to grant an easement? I know that the school department is in charge of school property, but they don't have the right to grant easements, I understand, without the mayor and council approval. Is that correct?
That's the law. The city council controls property disposition. And in Massachusetts, the law is an easement is considered a disposition or a transfer, if you will, because you're allowing other folks rights to something that they would not have had otherwise, and it's public property. So the school committee's powers do not include granting easements.
All right, so, you know, councilors, I have and I won't make a motion now because other people may want to speak, but I'd like to keep our thumb on the pulse of this issue. I'd like to eventually, after everyone has had a chance to offer any remarks, continue this to perhaps the second FinCom in May and have the parties come back, and let's see if
Solicitor Bridges and Mr. Heim can work with the school administration and the school committee and get this resolved, because this is not a good look for us. I mean, it really isn't. We're holding up a program or a process to enhance programs for children over what I'm hearing through the back chatter is sheer nonsense. It's political BS. And so if we hold on to this issue by continuing this to May and give the parties an opportunity to interact and perhaps bring about some common feelings of cooperation and collaboration, maybe we'll achieve what we want to achieve. And I'll make that motion after I'm assured that no one wants to say anything.
Thank you, Councilor. I think if we do approve that motion, then we should ask the mayor to attend as well.
Absolutely.
Councilor Tavares.
All right. Good evening, and thank you so much. Actually, I'm going to be thanking my colleague, Winter Farrell. I believe he did it well done. The reason I totally understand your frustration, because it doesn't have no sense. Doesn't have no sense for you to go through all this. As Boys and Girls Club on my ward, I have tons of the kids from my ward, low-income people, single parents. Most of them, their kids is right there in Boys and Girls Club. I remember Boys and Girls Club actually since I arrived to the United States. And when I become city council, actually, I've been there, I tours, I talked to them. I believe 3 years ago, we talked about this project, which was so confused, I couldn't understand, because you guys did a tremendous, spectacular, good job for the kids. And then the parents right now, I've been called, send some referral over there, but as my understanding, you guys full. You guys don't have no place to take anyone, because no place at all. And I totally agree with my colleagues, Winter Farrell. I think if this is depend on us as a councilor, elected official, we're here for the people. We're here to represent the people. We should work for the people, because this is something very great. And then we should be applauded, because we don't know how they get those connections, they get this network, and then, just to help them, and then we refuse over again, and then they keep on coming and confusing everybody. Even myself, sometimes I get confused, I don't understand exactly what's going on. Why reject this? And then my fellow council, I hope, we make this finish. Even if you have the money, we should donate to them. I wish I have the money to donate more. And then I appreciate it. The work you've been doing for the city, for the kids, and especially for my ward, which is most poor family. And I hope you get this done, because this is crazy.
Thank you, Councilor.
So
Councilor Rodriguez.
I don't know about donating money, because I don't know where we're going to get the money from.
I wish I have it myself.
That's good.
On my own.
Let's go play the lottery.
Me.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know that English is not my first language. I think it was my fifth language by the time I learned it. But when I look up the definition of landlocked, Google tells me that it's a piece of property that has no direct access into it. And it means that it can only be accessed by crossing over somebody else's property. So can somebody just explain to me how that property, Keith Field, whose property are we crossing over to get into Keith Field, if not the entire park? How's that landlocked? In the true definition of landlocked, how is that possible?
Do you mean because?
From when I look at West Elm Street,
Yep.
it abuts the Keith Field.
So if my memory is correct, on the RFP, there is a proposed plan. And the proposed plan includes a parking lot on the suggestion you're making, if I'm hearing you right, let me make sure I'm hearing you right. Why can't the club access the parcel from their existing parcel?
No, from West Elm Street. Because that parking, according to the rendition that I recall from 6 years ago,
Yep.
Maybe 6.5 years ago, it basically had a building and a parking area close to West Elm Street. What prevents the access to that parking lot from West Elm Street?
Like from their existing entrance? That's the question?
No, from
Okay.
West Elm Street abuts the property.
Right. Right behind the Arnone School.
Right. It abuts the property. So what prevents somebody from carving out an entrance from West Elm Street, not Belmont, but from West Elm Street
Go ahead.
or Warren Ave onto that parking lot, onto that property?
Counselor, I'll try to answer that for you. So the Boys and Girls Club has been asked over the period of this 5-6 years to design several ways to access the property. We have paid for every engineered study to have that done. We've presented them to multiple bodies. We like that idea. We don't like that idea. We like that idea. We don't like that idea. The portion you're discussing is, yes, we could cut a hole in the fence at the Arnone, the Keith Field, and put an entrance in. When we went to zoning, it was said to us, and again, nothing is on record, but this was told to us, that that's not going to work well because of the public safety building and the new intersection between Goddard Road and West Elm. So that's when we said, okay, what would work? Potentially through the Eagles. We designed that and had our engineers do a layout for that. It was responded, we don't like that. Then there was a suggestion.
We who? I want to sound like Council Farwell now, but we who?
Both the city and the school department have voiced different concerns over different configurations. We were asked to do an entranceway from the Arnone School parking lot through, I'm drawing a blank on the road, but the actual entrance to the Arnone School. We designed that. School committee said that is not acceptable. Now, these have been different committees, remember, so you have different people, and this has changed often.
Right.
So I'm not pointing fingers at any one committee. It's just been there's a lot of players that we've tried to appease. None of those have met the bar yet, I guess, and that's how we are still here. Because the current rendition we have is going through the Eagles, lining up with Goddard Road for traffic safety needs with the new public safety building, what has been recommended to us by different members of the city's planning departments, different members of the city's highway department. We've presented that. The school committee doesn't love that idea now, and that's okay, but we're trying to come up with something that will appease everyone.
But what bothers me is that we're talking about 6.5 years now since we first discussed this, and I'm afraid that my grandson, who's 9 years old, will not be able to utilize that field before he goes to college, to be honest with you. Because if this is the way we're going about this, we're finding reasons to say no versus reasons to say, let's see how we can make this work. And to me, it's somewhat frustrating because we have an opportunity, because you know how this whole project, I don't know if you know how this whole project started, back in the days with the soccer field and all that other stuff.
I know all too well. I've been with the club 10 years. This has been a dream of mine.
So here I am thinking that we're having some issues at Marciano Stadium with the field that needs to get redone. If we had that soccer facility and that football facility, maybe we could take some pressure off the Arnone School and have a lot of games being played in the middle or the center core of the city. But that's not being done because we're sitting here figuring it out. Well, I don't like the way that entrance looks. It doesn't appease my eyes, or I think the T is a little crooked and should. I mean, to me, it's nonsense. There's a public safety building. Yes, there will be emergency cars coming out of there, but it's not like they're going to be coming out like it's a highway. Just like when we have the police department on Commercial Street. Does that mean there's no traffic flow on Commercial Street because police cars go in and out? Or on Pleasant Street where the fire department is? Does that mean we shut down the fire department because cars go by the Pleasant Street from time to time? I think we can kind of work on the availability of what we have versus to sit here and try to reinvent the wheel, because now all of a sudden we're discussing landlocked pieces where, you're going to go destroy those little mounds that exist around the Arnone School to make an entrance into your property, which makes absolutely no sense when you've got, West Elm sitting right there with the long side of Keith, Keith Field, that you could actually carve out an entrance, because it's not like you're taking down the entire wall. You're basically cutting out an entrance into the property. So I don't quite understand this whole nonsense about, we can't do this because it's landlocked versus the other way.
Counselor, I do want to pay respect to the Keith family's contribution to the city, and I know one of the concerns is ensuring that the eagles and the pillars that are preserved.
Correct.
And the Boys and Girls Club has said for 5.5 years, we will ensure that as part of this, at our expense, ensuring that those are not damaged, preserving the Keith Fields family's legacy in this city. We have no intention to destroy or deteriorate any of that, and we have made that publicly clear to both the school committee and the city that we would endure those expenses related to that.
So what's the problem? There. What's the problem there? If you're preserving the entrances and the eagles and the birds and everything else, what's the problem? Why are we not moving forward with this project? And I know some of the city folks are here. I like to hear, because it would be nice to, within the next 10 years or so, to have a facility that maybe some of these kids can kind of enjoy a little bit better than what they have currently.
On that point, there's no access through the Eagles that's lawfully available to the club at this point. This was your question on the landlock. Where you're at, and I was trying to get there with you, but the exact point that you're asking about right now was not part of the property disposition. The parcel has about a fingernail on West Elm.
It does?
Approximately. That's why I use the phrase landlocked, that I think you're taking a little bit of issue with.
I am taking an issue with it because when I look at Keith Field, a vast majority of it lies on West Elm Street.
A little bit of the history that, I'm sure Mr. Heim didn't want to belabor anybody with was this body made the entire parcel surplus so that the city could figure out the project. But then the school committee, because it technically is under care and custody, Keith Field is controlled by the school committee. They declared with correct authority what was available for surplus. And what was available is a rectangular parcel that abuts the current parcel that has a fingernail of frontage on West Elm. That was my phrase, no one else's. But so right now the Eagles, or that entrance, or that whole stretch that you're asking me about what's the problem here, that technically is still under the care and custody and control of the school department. And on top of that, to get through the Eagles would require you all to give an access easement, and would have to widen it, which no one has a problem with that, as you just heard Mr. Heim say, but it's not wide enough right now for vehicle passage. This is it. What was made available was not the entirety of Keith Field. It was what the school committee voted.
So if this body needs to do an easement to allow this project to go forward.
You do.
Let me say it as my Haitian friends would say, que c'est le problème?
I appreciate the sentiment. I'm not going to, I don't have a problem. I'm a lawyer who represents a corporation. The problem is the legal schematic I just defined for you. Mm-hmm. The school committee controls everything that was left. So you all can't give an easement on something you all don't control.
We can't give an easement of what so you're just saying that we could give an easement, but now we can't give an easement because we don't control the land?
You cannot give an easement without the school committee relinquishing control on more of Keith Field. Or, as you're rightly pointing out, how else can we access the parcel already?
Could an entrance be done closer to the church?
So that
away from the Eagles and leaving the Eagles alone?
I'm not sure.
That plan was designed. And we even went one step further and went to the church and asked them if they'd grant us an easement through their property. Their board of directors denied us that, which that's their right. We looked at that other entrance past the Eagles to the left, if you're looking at the Eagles from the street. We did that design. What I was told, and again, this is what I was told by departments, no official votes, that we don't see you getting permitted for that because it does not line up with the traffic patterns that we are proposing for the city's new public safety building. Now, if I'm hearing what you're saying, Counselor, I'm more than happy to dig out that plan. We've paid for it 5 times over and submit it to see if we can get permitted. But I can assure you, if we don't get permitted, it's just, we're going to be right back here with the same problem.
Well, why don't we have the discussion beforehand, before you even go through the permitting process with the entities? Because I frankly need to somehow be convinced that we can't walk and chew gum at the same time when it comes to those entrances. You know, it's an entrance to a public safety building. It's not, again, it's not like it's a parking garage where people are screaming in and out constantly all day long. I don't see how we can't make it work, because this is somewhat ridiculous that we're sitting here discussing this and we can't come up with, well, let's do an entrance a little to the left, leave the Eagles alone, do an entrance up there. And again, and you guys aren't going in and out of that property constantly anyways. You know, it's not like it's a school or a college or whatever that kids are driving in and out, in and out, in and out. You know, your kids are mostly dropped off. You know, it's not like they're driving in and out like you would have, you know, a major traffic issue. So I don't understand exactly what the whole holdup is versus moving forward with something like this.
I want to be clear in my statement that the Boys and Girls Club is willing to look at any configuration that we can move our project forward. But we do seek some buy-in and consistency from the city to get there.
And again, my question as one of the people sitting up here is, why are you not getting that from the city?
I can't answer that question.
Well, who are the entities that we need to talk to get you that, besides the mayor? I know everybody tries to point the finger at the mayor, but who do we need to talk to?
I think the school committee needs to be on board. Other departments in the city need to be on board, and there has to be a collective meeting. There have been meetings being held without the Boys and Girls Club. We cannot work that way and come up with a viable project that everybody wins. And I truly mean that. Everybody wins here.
Do you have a time set to go back to the school committee and try to figure this stuff out?
I have asked to be placed on multiple agendas. I've been denied.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Razak.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, Mr. Heim. Good evening, City Solicitor Bridges. So I'm not going to repeat everything my colleagues just said, but over 2020, Council President, we facilitated to have this piece of land be named surplus, so it could be developed or could, go through the process. And since then, I'm going to be honest with you, besides hearing rumors or talk, I've been left out as a city councilor, so I don't know what happened. I've asked, what's happened. So having you here this evening to explain this really, I feel so bad, because I feel like time's gone by and we haven't been able to get anything accomplished, not for the Boys and Girls Club and not for the city either, because the city was supposed to also, this was going to be a good thing for the city as well. So it's just disappointing. So to make a long story short, whatever we need to do, as you've heard, my colleagues, a number of them want to see this move forward, want to be able to help to make sure that the right thing is done. So what we need to do, and I think what's happening is, there's too many people involved, and different people. I mean, the city council is totally different than it was in 2020. So a lot of my colleagues probably not even aware of what we had to go through to get this to get here today. But so I think you need to get a committee. You need to get a group together to get this moving, and to get the school committee on board, and to make the right decisions, to make the right to see your plans, to work with, whether it's the city departments. I don't know if I'm figuring the Traffic Commission gave you some of those, some of the comments you made about the traffic and the flow of traffic through with the public safety building. So maybe we just need to get a group together and work together and then come back maybe to the full council or to the school committee. But I feel we're detached here. You're working, you're getting things done, but nothing is moving forward, and it's disappointing for the youth of our city. So whatever we can do, I'm sure I speak for a number of my colleagues, to get this moving, we're here for you.
If I could add, Mr. Chairman, we have requested that as of recently. We have been told because of litigation that can't happen. I've confirmed with the city solicitor that there is no litigation that exists. That, again, is a rumor that's been spread. There is zero litigation in regards to this matter.
That's true, and if anyone's following what's happening at White Stadium right now, this is so far from that, which was deemed completely appropriate. There is no litigation surrounding disposition of Keith Field or the RFP related to it, or, I mean, there hasn't been an official conveyance, but.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor.
Thank
Councilor
you, Mr.
Castro.
Chairman.
Thank you. Good evening. I must echo Councilor Azek's comments. I'm not really clear about what you're talking about and what's been happening since we voted to release this as surplus. I'm the councilor who voted not to release it as surplus. Don't hold it against me. I stand by what I did. But I will say this, I'm also a real estate attorney. I would really benefit from having a plan in front of me so that I would know what you're talking about, okay? Because I am very familiar with that area. I was just at the War Memorial the other day. My kids played ball in that field and at the Unknown School. But I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know where the land is. If you had come in with some plans, I think we would be much more educated in what you're talking about, at least those of us who aren't as on top of this as some of the others are. I don't know what your holdups are. I suspect it's humans not going along with you. I'd be happy to try to help you, but I can't see what you're trying to do. I suspect, because I'm not privy to the public safety building concerns, I suspect if you could find some way to get access from Belmont Street, it would be better, but that would involve more school property and the parking lot for the Unknown School. I just don't know enough about what you're talking about, and I'd really like to see something and try to help you. But, I'm at a tremendous disadvantage here. As for easements, I know how to do that. As for surplus orders, yep, we're familiar with that already. But we need more if you want us to help you. And I also need a clear understanding of where the school committee's control ends and where ours begins.
In this particular regard, this is a Chapter 40A, Section 15 issue, and in cities and towns, the legislative body or the property controlling body can divest its custody or control into its governmental bodies, like its parks department or its cemeteries department or its school department. Sites where schools have built were once city-owned land, and the city technically still owns them, but they're under the care, custody, and control of the school department. And that is the Keith Field situation. According to both the bequest and the action of the council, it's under the care and custody of the school department for recreational and athletic activities, if I'm remembering what the gift indicated. So in terms of the legal mechanism, I'm sure you don't mean generally where does the line lie in all aspects of the coordination of governance, but in terms of just this aspect, just like this body already dealt with, unless there's land that is already under city control or was part of the RFP, there has to be a care and custody vote relinquishing the control, and then you all can grant an easement. I mean, that's really technically what the law allows, is you could not grant an easement over something you don't control right now.
And I understand that
Okay.
ultimately, what the school committee approved for, for acquisition by the Boys and Girls Club was not enough land, because you don't have access. That's right? You don't have access to a public way, so you are landlocked.
That's a fair statement, Counselor.
Okay. And you're not able to use the parking lot that's beside your building because that belongs to the church, and they've had it with your people using their parking lot.
We have a lease agreement with that church that we lease that parking lot from them each year. They don't have adequate parking, so we're constantly challenging each other with parking, and we try to be great neighbors, and we are. The pastor and I meet often, but it's a challenge.
Sure, and I would think that their busy times are not necessarily
Correct.
your busy times, which are good, although there's probably some overlap.
That is correct. In regards to documents, I do have them all with me tonight. I brought copies for every counselor. I'm happy to send them electronically as well. Shame on me for not getting them to you sooner, but I want to be clear. I have been given direction from the city that the school committee is who I'm to work with, because that is who I needed to sign off to move the project forward. So shame on me for not keeping you all up to speed, but I was following the directive in which the city has given me.
Well, I'm not trying to shame you, but I'm just saying, unless I have something in front of me, I'm not quite sure what you're talking about.
Understood. I'm just a very thorough
what your
person.
limitations are. And the other thing is, in your opinion, what is the holdup?
Humans.
Of course. But does someone want something else? Does the body want something else from you? I mean, are they reneging on
No.
providing this? I mean, what do you think?
I personally think there's a lot of egos involved here, and I can't combat those, right? One of the challenges was the underground culvert. Well, the Boys and Girls Club came to the table and said, we'll help try to solve that problem for you. But that sometimes feels like that hasn't been enough.
Do I understand that perhaps you were trying to put your access where the culvert is?
The parking lot, for the structure of the parking lot overlaps about 50 feet of the culvert, but on the surplus property, there's about 150 feet, a little more, 200 and some odd feet of culvert that is underneath the parking lot, which once we sign an LDA, we will own. It's not very beneficial to fix half a culvert. The city has addressed that, as the Boys and Girls Club has. That is where we've gotten creative and said to the city, we're willing to help. I will tell you, the moment we did that, things started to move again. But that was our gesture of good faith.
And who told you that access onto West Elm Street wasn't good because of the public safety building, the traffic commission?
There's been various boards that I've gone to. Early on, I can tell you, I consulted with the planning department, and we talked about how this could potentially work. There was a recommendation that there's a natural intersection that lines up with those eagles that are right on West Elm currently.
Right.
So there's curb cuts there, all of that exists, so everyone's always been telling me from the beginning, well, that's the most logical place to put the entrance. But the solicitor is right, that was not part of the declared surplus.
It's a part of the deal.
But we thought, in good faith, and it was in the LDA, that an easement would need to be negotiated. That is, or the ENA rather, is in the ENA, says that a city will work in good faith to help negotiate an easement. What is good faith?
Humans.
Yes.
Well, I'm willing to try to help you, but I need more information.
I will get that for you.
And, maybe we postpone this matter and work, for a few weeks and then come back to it and see what we can accomplish in that interim time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Lally?
Motion to postpone 2 months?
On the
The
motion.
motion, actually.
So I've not yet had an opportunity, and I just want to quickly, You know, I've done multiple tours of the Boys and Girls Club. I mean, it's a great facility, and the programs that you offer to our students, it's my understanding half of the kids enrolled at Boys and Girls Club are kids from Ward 5. So this project's always been near and dear to me. I was the original sponsor of the surplus order that this body debated multiple times, and we all unanimously passed that surplus order. So I'm a big proponent of this project. I've been trying to work with Mr. Heim for the last 5 years to move this project forward, and I share, you know, your frustration that here it is 5.5 years later, and, you know, we're in a position where we have multiple options on how to access this land. And it seems like, you know, it's a whack-a-mole. Every time an option comes up, it gets whacked down. Another one comes up, we keep whacking it down. I think there's definitely a pathway forward. We just got to get, you know, the people that can make the decision to move forward with a option to get them voting on the option. From my understanding, as has been stated before, this matter is before the school committee. This particular matter has to be referred to the facilities subcommittee, has to have a vote from facilities subcommittee to the full city, to the full school committee for a final vote on releasing control of whatever path that we find onto this property. Then the matter would come back to this city council for a final easement vote on the path chosen. And so I agree that we should continue this matter, that we should do everything we can as city councilors to reach out to our friends on the school committee. And again, school committee member Vega, thank you for joining us this evening. I know you're a big supporter of this project. The boys and girls of this city deserve that we work together as a city to move this project forward. I know there's been roadblocks. I've been invited to a few of the meetings that was set up that were just abruptly canceled and not rescheduled. And so we're finding ourselves in a position where, you know, we just can't get our act together, and it's frankly embarrassing, and the children of Brockton deserve better. And we will continue to work to try to bring this matter over the goal line. So on the motion, I'm just going to do a brief second round of questioning. Councilor Farwell?
No, I was just going to say, for the second meeting in May, which I believe would be the 19th, I would ask that you have the mayor come in as chairman of the school committee. I would ask that you have the superintendent come in. I'm not interested in inviting other school committee members. I want the decision makers who are here. Would you also please invite the DPW commissioner? Those three people, along with the people who are invited tonight, should be sufficient. And then I would hope we'd have some progress by then on this matter.
Understood. Will do. Quick question, Mr. Clerk. When we make a vote to postpone, do we also have to include additional invitees, or is that something?
No, we can add those on.
Okay. All right. So just quickly, Councilor Tavares, one last comment.
Yes. Actually, today, do you expect any letter recommendation for this counselor to help you go to the school committee? I know I have a school committee here, which I'm definitely going to be work with you as a Boys and Girls Club on my ward. I'm going to be so high advocated for this because it's my word. And what do you want us to do today before you go for this recommendation for you to go to the next level?
I would respectfully ask anyone who can help get us on an agenda for the school committee.
Okay, something, can you help with that?
Well, that's not in my purview.
All right, I'm going to work on it and get back to you.
Great. Thank you, Councilor. So we have on the floor right now a motion to postpone this matter until May 19th with additional invited guests. All in favor?
Is there a second?
Second.
Oh, sorry.
Yes, it was, yes.
Okay. Properly seconded. All in favor? Anyone opposed? The motion to postpone is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Heim. Thank you for joining us this evening. Madam Solicitor, thank you for being with us this evening. And our other guests this evening, thank you for being here. Corinne, great job. Thank you. Councilor recognition. Any councilors like to be recognized? Councilor Azak.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to make an announcement for Brockton area teens ages 14 to 19 years old that are interested in environmental stewardship and community service to apply for the Green Team 2025 at DW Fields Park. This program is hosted by Wildlands Trust and Manomet Conservation Sciences. You need to go onto the wildlandstrust.org, a website, to apply for the Green Team 2025. The deadline is April 28th. This is an amazing program. I've seen our youth in the last few years that have participated. It's there is a stipend, I believe it is paid, but it's a really great way to get out in nature and discover some amazing things here in at DW Fields Park. So just go on to wildlandstrust.org and you can get the information right there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Anyone else? Seeing none, councilors, with no further business before this committee, I declare this meeting adjourned.